was the exchange of information between each other. And as ships came into what was the settlement of Brooklyn and the settlement of Perth Amboy at that time, they ran aground. They hit low spots, high tide, low tide, during a storm. And of course, the goods that were lost, either being brought in or shipped out, there was no one to write an insurance check. So one of the things that the settlement of course, that large black obelisk building is the new 9/11 tower.
Okay, yes.
And of course, to the left of that is the Verrazano Bridge that connects.
Likes talking about the lighthouse.
Staten
Still
Island
talking
to
about the
left,
lighthouse.
And that was
Hasn't
destroyed
stopped.
by the superstorm Sandy. However,
The lighthouse and
listening to the news
everything.
this past week, the federal government signed a bill, we're gonna get the shoal light back
It's a nice
because
bill and everything.
in case of an emergency,
Sure.
we're going to need it. So they signed a bill to replace
Wanna
the
know about the
historical
lighthouse?
lighthouse that stood to the left of the bridge.
He's the guy that
And
asked.
they started with a bill for $14 million.
He don't stop
Right
talking
now,
about
if we
it.
look down to the left, the end of Sandy Hook,
Left and right and
pointing
everything.
towards what would be Staten Island to the left of the lighthouse tower. That is the end of Sandy Hook, way out, it shapes a hook, and then there's a little radio tower out there.
Still
In
talking
between
about
that
the
hook
lighthouse.
and land, policing the boats on this side are being stored on the Staten Island side of Fort Wadsworth. Everything on the Coast Guard station here was wiped out. Their sewage pumping system, their electrical generating station, stuff was in
No joke, he's still talking
1974.
about it.
All the buildings here had to be
Hey,
remediated,
kidding
have to
me?
be
He must know more about the lighthouse than
because
anyone in the
of the
history of the
oil
lighthouse.
tanks in the basement as they were installed by the U.S. Army. Fort Hancock was built in the late 1800s, and it served as an army post along with Fort Hamilton and Fort Amherst
Take
in
a
Staten
nap, listen,
Island
don't
to
talk about the
protect the
lighthouse.
harbor. All the buildings here are historical except for the Monmouth College, Rutgers University, and Brookdale College, and we have two high schools that are oceanic study for students.
How did he
Those are
know
all
so much
maintained,
about the
at least from
lighthouse?
the government, but those buildings are fairly new and were just replaced because of Sandy. And everything else you look,
I swear to
the waves
God,
from
he's
the
talking about the
Atlantic
lighthouse
Ocean
still.
side were
No
34
joke.
feet high as recorded by the meteorologists and by the
If you ever need somebody to work for you
Army Corps of
and know about
Engineers.
lighthouses,
During the height of the storm, and from the bay side, they were 12 feet. They
He's your
met in the
man.
middle. The roads that you drove in on
knows
today
about the
didn't
roads
exist
and
after the superstorm.
Wow.
The people on Sandy Hook, the people that work, generates bills that pass through Congress, and of course,
We're
they're not
stuck.
being passed until the private sector's taking care of.
the-
Behind me
a
is the
little
highest
man
point above
knows
sea
all about the
level
lighthouse.
on the east coast, and that's Mount Mitchell in the Atlantic Highlands. If you look up on the Highlands, you'll see a big condominium building. To the left of that, you'll see two globes or two domes. That is Twin Lights. It's another lighthouse. That is no
But the
longer a
other lighthouse,
navigational
yeah.
lighthouse. It's now part of the state of New Jersey park system, although they maintain the lighthouse through the state park system. But that's Mount Mitchell is 287 feet above sea level. Along the water, that's the highest point above sea level from Maine to Florida. That's why the lighthouse was put there in the early 1900s. As we
Hungry.
look out on the beaches, you can see North Beach, Gunnison, and other beaches that during the time when Fort Hancock was an army post up until 1974, were still New Jersey state beaches for swimming. It was an odd thing. There was a fort back here, Fort Hancock. Across the main road, you can still see the guardhouse in the center of the island. When you came back here, Lighthouse was not available to the private citizens because you were stopped by the MPs, the military police. They should know about German U-boats were right outside of our window here. We found that out after the war. As you know, that along the coast of California and the West Coast, there were a lot of Japanese submarines too. But of course, during those times, those things weren't publicized.
War and everything.
Fort Hancock has been a stalwart, but the lighthouse has been here longer than anything else. The light stays lit, it's a little bulb. People say, well, how does that get out to the water at night? Well, originally we had whale oil lamps, and then we had
Whale oil.
kerosene in the 1850s. Through Downing of electric, we have a container with an enclosed generator, which runs on diesel fuel, protected from the elements and from anyone's tampering, which will run the light for 8 days. Of course, Sandy gave it its strongest test recently, was the 2 days on the generator. So, this lighthouse has a lot of history.
We're on top of the lighthouse right now, we're talking about the nude beach.
Oh, I'm
No
just saying,
joke.
that's one of the things I was
He
gonna.
knows everything about the lighthouse, and he knows about the nude beach.
I know about it because as a child, I was born and raised in New Jersey. People from North Jersey, we had one car, and the mother stayed home and was a housewife. And when your father drove to the New Jersey
My father?
beach-
Oh.
No, my father. When my father drove to the beach, Sandy Hook was the state beach back here.
My father would never go there.
My father didn't either. But the beach was 50 cents, and that's where you came. All of Sandy Hook was in New Jersey.
You're making me want to go this year. I'm thinking about going.
I would welcome you, and I'm surprised you're not complaining about the new rate to come in. We went
It
up.
costs money to go to the nude beach?
No, it costs money to come in the summer. After Memorial Day. they
15
pay.
bucks.
$15.
It's going up to 20.
Now we're on top of the lighthouse and we're talking about the Mets and the Yankees.
Aren't they part of New York and New
Yes.
Jersey?
Look down the lighthouse. See the door? It's like the lighthouse door and everything like that. When I come to the lighthouse, I wear my PTs, baby. I don't leave home without them.